What's Next is the title of this video and is a nod to the TV show West Wing. It was the famous line and catchphrase that President Bartlett, played so well by Martin Sheen, used on the show. It was the show's shibboleths. Martin has been on the campaign trail and has lauded the Democratic Party staffers and volunteers. They're the future of the Democratic Party, and the job isn't done yet. God, do I wish we had President Bartlett as our president for 2025. I hope you all know by now that Donald Trump has won the presidential election, and many Americans are grieving the outcome. The Democratic Party today is in disarray and has started its post-game analysis, or post-mortem if you prefer. The Democratic Party needs to change, to grow, and become a true advocate of we the people by returning to its traditional working-class base, to the party of the people, to the patriots and founding fathers they were back in the 1790s, when the oldest political party in the world was created by we the people as the base that brought them to power. It has to return to its traditional yeoman farmer of yore, to the modern construction or office worker, or nurse aide today. It has to return to its historic and traditional populist roots if it has any chance of winning the next election, and to offer any loyal opposition to Trump and his cult, the Republican Party. And with Trump in office, and the Republicans in control of at least the Senate, and, as of this writing, they're looking to take the House also, this makes the stakes higher than ever before. America needs political parties at this point, that's a reality. We may even need more parties, smaller parties like they have in most other democracies. I'm not saying that everyone who voted for Trump has joined his cult. Most of Trump's 2024 voters are just afraid and overwhelmed by their worsening living conditions. Nearly 60% of all Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Nor am I saying that there haven't been some great accomplishments of the Democrats, far from it. They've done so much good for rural and urban America, but most Americans don't know what they did and didn't like Harris's economic plans. Many saw it as just more of the same. For a balanced view of what the Democratic Party gets right or wrong, check out my related videos. We need a functioning Democratic Party to have any chance at not only being a check and balance against the whims of Trump, but to advocate for the rest of us who are going to be hurt by Trump's return to office, and that number will continue to grow as Trump's impacts and consequences are fully known. We need more than loyal opposition, not a party of two faces with two masters. Since Bill Clinton, the party has taken big money just like the Republicans. It often serves corporate interests over our own, and can't even keep its elected officials in line. Just look at Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. That was Chuck Schumer's disgrace. If any politician is corrupt like Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court, they need to go. And if they don't actually serve our interests, they need to go. And if the Democrats ever win or have the chance to win office again, they have to abolish the Electoral College, make every vote count equally, and have a true popular vote in this country. And they have to get big unlimited money out of politics. No more political action committees. No more Citizens United. A constitutional amendment making that a reality needs to be passed. So that's 2 constitutional amendments if you're counting. So yeah, it's going to be tough unless we act together, and I have some ideas on how to make that a reality. There will have to be such a groundswell of disaffected voters that many 2024 Trump voters come to our side. And to do that, the Democratic Party needs to be a trustful and reliable partner with America. Things like the Hillary Clinton campaign taking control of the DNC back in 2016 to the detriment of Bernie Sanders needs to stop. And that action could have been the reason why Trump was handed a victory in 2016, amongst other reasons. America is aware of all the trouble that some of these Democratic officials have caused us. The Democratic Party needs to change ownership and management, and it needs to truly be a populist movement of the people and by the people. For my critique on the Republican Party, watch my separate video. In America, you'll have to pay attention to what's happening in America and the world at this crucial moment. You have to understand civics, and you have to realize that we all belong to the same family, the same nation, the same race. Every human who ever was or will be is related. Our DNA is 99.9% the same. Whether by divine providence or science or both, those are the facts. We have to overcome our fear and division, and to do that, we're going to have to put past differences aside and work across the table and aisle with everyone. Because we are all, or will soon be, that is, unless they're a billionaire, going to be disaffected by number 47. That's the other purpose of my channel. Politicians need to work together when they can on issues we all believe in, and they actually have to pass legislation. They have to start treating us like partners, not pets. They need to tell us what they're doing and what they've done for us lately. And they need to listen to our needs, which means we have to tell them what we want in an organized manner. Most of us want the same things after all, a life a lot easier than this one, with safe streets, a comfortable life, and not all the worry. and more civil discourse and civility. I'm not saying we don't need more populist firebrands, but we don't need any more cult leaders or zealots. In the richest country in the world, why are we all so frustrated or sad or lonely or living in squalor or living paycheck to paycheck, overwhelmed, everyone short-staffed, overworked, underpaid, as everything gets more expensive and the rich get richer? Not only richer, but more money than some can spend in several lifetimes. The rate at which the wealth gap has grown since the pandemic has been the most in history. Many Americans are miserable, and why are people in so many other countries happier with better standards of living than we have? Life shouldn't be this hard. We're fed up and overwhelmed, and many of us have lost faith in America and democracy. Many of us are scared, alone, and lonely, lacking a sense of belonging. We need a political, civil, and social movement, and we need to all work and volunteer and donate to charities if we can afford to. And we need more time off and more sick and vacation time to make things like this possible. And we all deserve a good life and a good retirement without fear of living on the streets or not being able to afford medicine or college or a home or a place to retire and spend our final days in dignity. I know someone who was very dear close to me who passed away recently after having been released from a private equity-owned nursing home in Washington, PA, while she was still sick with pneumonia. Before she died from it while she was still in the nursing home, she rang the aid bell 4 times one night. No one came and checked on her for hours. No one came. She urinated 3 times that night. No one helped her out of bed or got a bedpan. No one had cleaned her up until morning after sitting in her own urine all evening. Life feels cheap. We don't feel that anyone is looking out for us. I think that was one of the attractions of Trump. Misplaced as it is in my opinion at least, but like I said, we'll soon see. He is a great cult leader, I'll give him that. The politicians need to show us that they deserve our trust and our vote and support. And let's build that better America we all dream about. We need old-fashioned third places. I'll cover them in my next video as well. And we need old-fashioned speaking events, symposia, and party meetings, and cookouts, and events, and a sense of belonging. We all need to have access to our local party leaders, and we have to be vocal. Need new friends or like-minded acquaintances, host safe parties or gatherings, or pop-up topic nights at local third places like a cafe or bar. Just send a post saying, I want to talk about high prices or whatever, and ask people who are interested to join you in some safe public place to talk about it. I bet a lot of people feel the same way that you do, and want to get things off their chest too and connect to people, strangers or people that may have different points of view. We need to talk about money and politics to be able to get out of this mess. We need active listening, respect and compassion for each other, at least until proven otherwise. And we need to learn civics, reason, critical thinking, and media literacy, and understand the obligations of citizenship. And most of us need to get off our couches and out of our homes or apartments and meet our neighbors and reach out to the community. We need to give everyone a clear way to have their voice known. They have to be given the opportunity to make some of the nation's decisions if they want to. People should be able to present ideas and concerns, and the party needs to grow their constituency outreach programs like they used to have. Membership in the party should be more than just voting. It should be a political and social movement with real membership and more locations across the nation. New leaders need to be found, recruited, and trained. Civics, government, public policy, ethics, morality, and politics need to move to the forefront of community outreach. I like the idea of non-profit, Democratic Party-owned coffee shops everywhere, with meeting rooms and places to hang, board games, and meet people. Have social and sporting events, or events for cat and dog lovers, tour groups or trips, dating events, meetups, pop-up events, dances, concerts, movie nights, physical training and exercise programs. You get the idea. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I can tell you that the past few months here have been bumping. I don't remember as many big acts and concerts come to town for free. They were campaign rallies. It's not fair that the rest of the country doesn't feel that level of civics that we do. Everyone should, and it shouldn't just be during elections. The more people get involved and have outlets out of the home and away from their screens, the happier people can be. If people don't want to participate in things like that, they shouldn't have to, but the party should organize these things for everyone else. And the coffee shops should have prices cheaper than Starbucks. We all need to decide what we all want in common, like lower grocery bills, and then it needs to happen. All of this needs to be done in cooperation with existing organizations that act as a base for the Democratic Party or like-minded groups such as weekend trips, organized to help a Native American tribe on a project, or outreach to some distressed community, helping to bring different groups under the Democratic tent together. Wouldn't it be nice if the Democratic Party organized volunteers for things like that and natural disasters? And when they do, they need to tell us, make it visible, and maybe some more of us can help. That ownership in America, working together, is what we need right now. And let me be the first hand to offer that. The more we work together, in debates and town halls and by volunteering, the more we'll feel connected to each other. The more we'll all belong. When we're an organized voice, they will have no choice but to hear us. I cover all this in my video, Americans Need to Talk About Money. If you only ever watch one other video of mine, watch that one. It's the beginning of why my entire channel exists and what changes we need to make as Americans, which I believe is the only answer to counter the Trump threat, is a complete popular movement with chapters in every town and city in America. We need new DNC management, and we need to tell the politicians what we want and believe, and they need to listen, which means we need to make our voices known. Interested parties should organize on social media with others in their community and build a national movement. I'll cover all of that in my next video. In case you're wondering if a lot of this sounds far-fetched, many of these ideas have precedent in America and many other countries. Hitler even had his Hitler Youth, which was about social and political indoctrination for the next generation of fighting soldiers to die for a tyrant. Having safe places for children is important too. Having a social or charity arm for after-school or childcare facilities would be a great step to win the hearts and minds of America's young families, or nursing homes. We need to reinvigorate America to work for all the things we hold in common, and for the common good and the sustainability of our country and our world. Everyone, no matter what country they live in or where they were born, deserves the same human rights. We need to put that in practice and policy. And the Democratic Party needs to build partnerships to create these institutions. Trump's voters wishing for a return to economic prosperity and peace have just made both impossible, call it a prediction, and everyone's life will get worse with increased policing, mass deportations, and other disruptions we can only dream about, or shall I say, fear in our nightmares. You know, only 41% of Americans approved of his last term in office. Did you Trump voters really think that the Democrats were worse than what you had under Trump? All the millions of COVID deaths by his terrible response to the pandemic. And yes, prices are higher. I can't think of what Biden could have realistically done to counter prices other than to bust up monopolies, make private equity and foreign investment of homes and housing illegal, nationalize corrupt industries, and stop price gouging. He should have done all that. He did make a lot of contributions, but he made mistakes, as we all do. We're all human. And Biden should have stood up to Benjamin Netanyahu, who just the day after the election announced that they are not allowing Gazans to return to North Gaza. We are in for a rude awakening. Our rights will erode, and our water and air will get dirtier. And as we drill baby drill, the states most affectionate for Trump will be amongst the ones most impacted by climate change. Unless Trump does a huge nationwide housing building project, homes and rents will keep going up, as will prices for everything. We'll know starting in a few months. And what happens if Trump dispenses with elections and keeps himself in office? Will we have a true civil war? It's unlikely, but still a possibility. And what happens to America and his movement in the post-Trump world? In a previous video, I discussed how the Republican Party of Lincoln has twisted into the dark cult of a sadistic tyrant. Watch that next if you're interested. But what remains of the Republican Party post-Trump will ultimately be decided by the Republicans themselves, just as the Democrats or anyone who opposes Trump needs to decide on our future and are willing to work for the interests of all Americans and lower prices, prison price gougers. Build U.S. homes. Build the schools and colleges and nursing homes and hospitals and retirement homes and get us off the streets and make our lives better and easier. This is too much. People are tired of the politicians and the talking heads of the media who give us both sides when we know one side has been lying to America since the big lie about the election Trump lost in 2016. What a world we live in, only to be followed by the one he won. What does that say about either party that America changed their mind so vocally? Many of the people who've been supposedly looking out for our interests are only looking out for themselves. Remember when Trump billed the Secret Service by having events at one of his resorts? Corruption, scandals, and lies are more common in D.C. than Gomorrah. Why do so many of our politicians act like that? They're a piss-poor representation of America. We don't act that way, why do they? Why does power and money draw so many sycophants and fools? Why aren't either of the parties seeing that? If there is to be any hope of success, the party must undergo serious changes. This isn't a rebuke of Kamala Harris or a majority of her policies, just an observation that the message and messaging didn't resonate with a majority of Americans who supported Trump. Nor is this a rebuke of President Joe Biden, But I can't help to wonder if he should have stayed in the race or dropped out sooner. The Democratic Party has long prided itself on being the voice of the people. Yet, in the 2024 election, it was clear that this vision had grown cloudy. Simply put, the Democrats in political office have done a terrible job at telling the rest of America on those accomplishments to the people and addressing the economic needs of the vast majority of Americans. The "what have you done for me lately?" Trans surgeries for inmates may be an important topic for that demographic and might be an agenda item, but it didn't need to be part of the campaign's messaging. Trump's successful ad countering Harris has made the interview that the ad was based on the biggest political gaffe since Michael Dukakis's famous tank gaffe. Most Americans might even support this agenda item, who knows? But when viewers were wondering what Harris was going to do for them, they saw this ad instead. And with the billions of dollars Trump gained from his billionaire donors and passees, this ad got a lot of play. Love him or hate him, Trump populist communication style across media and speeches and rallies get paid attention to. Everyone knows of Trump's accomplishments, whether they fully understand his faults is up for debate, because he kept telling everybody the former and denying the latter. He even put his signature on our pandemic relief checks as if he was personally giving us the money. And for most of us, we got a decent check. It certainly wasn't Trump change. Get used to that phrase, Trump change. You're going to hear it a lot more as your wallets shrink under Trump. Tariffs only raise prices, folks. And mass deportations will impact production and supply chains to your gas, milk, and bread, as well as everything else. But don't take my word for it. We'll soon see for ourselves soon enough. The man can sell tuition to a bogus school, sell Bibles, coins, and training cards. For all his faults, no one can doubt Trump's a great self-promoter. Amid Trump's relentless barrage of sound bites and fear-driven rhetoric, the Democratic message faltered. What did Democrats stand for? To too many Americans, the answer was unclear. The party seemed caught between lofty ideals and conflicting factions, including the disaffected Republicans who joined her camp. But make no mistake, to win, Democrats must define themselves in terms that every voter can understand. They must become the unshakable champion of the people. For all its flaws, Trump's rhetoric cut straight to the heart of economic pain and insecurity. He spun tales of blame, scapegoating immigrants, demonizing progressives, and painting himself as the last bulwark against chaos. Democrats, on the other hand, often appeared mired in complex policy language and statistics, unable to effectively counter these emotionally charged narratives. To win the next battle, they must learn the language of simplicity without sacrificing substance. They need a vision as bold, as unmistakable, and as potent as the historical movements that once united the party. And besides messaging and crafting better sound bites and talking points, they need to build communication channels like the far right does with their conservative media, radio shows, and news channels. The Republicans own and manage much more media, and that has been hurting the Democrats since Fox and Rush Limbaugh began their divisive poison in America. We need to counter that. Rich Democratic voters, we need your help with that. We need an open, regular dialogue and feedback between the party and any legitimate steps or channels to make that possible. The stakes are clear. With a Republican-led Senate and Trump back in power, expect more attacks on civil rights, attempts to gut social safety nets, and a future that serves only the privileged elite. To fight back, Democrats need to articulate again and again that they are the party of the working person, of every color, every creed. Their message must echo in factories, rural diners, coffee shops, urban centers, and union halls across America. When you mention the economy, voters hear, "my wallet." Inflation and rising living costs struck at the heart of millions of families, and many of them blame Democrats for their hardships. Trump and the Republicans seized the moment, painting the Democratic Party as inept, aloof, and incapable of understanding the struggles of ordinary Americans. And while it's true that some policies aimed at long-term solutions, perception is reality in politics. Too many people perceive Democrats as fiddling while Rome burned. That's not to say that Trump is good for the economy. His tariffs alone promised to raise prices, as well as his promise of mass deportations. But what was the Democratic response to counter this? How did the Democratic Party, which once championed the working class, drift so far from its roots? I cover the Clinton era, NAFTA, and other issues in my video, What the Democratic Party Gets Wrong. And although the party has moved closer to its traditional roots, the election shows just how much more the party needs to move. Part of the issue is the party's internal division. Infighting between progressives and moderates rendered the party incapable of presenting a cohesive front. When one wing championed social justice, another fretted over middle-of-the-road voters, while yet another tried to compromise. In the cacophony, voters heard noise but not hope. Republicans, meanwhile, moved with single-minded precision. They played to fear, to anger, and to a deep discontent with relentless energy. Their fear-mongering didn't help the overall health of democracy, but did benefit their side for the election. Democrats must learn a hard lesson. Division weakens, unity strengthens. To change course, the party must learn to speak with one voice. A voice that reminds Americans they are, first and foremost, the party of working people. Their failures have not been of policy alone, but of connection, trust, and authenticity. I'm not saying that the Democratic Party should abandon its other bases like pro-choice, LGBT, and other minorities. I'm saying that the messaging should be consistent and apply to all Americans. Our support of our different bases should be a known fact and shouldn't really be the focus in campaigns. Nor am I saying that the party should slow roll its agenda of equality and human and civil rights, far from it. But those goals should be wrapped up in the message to be framed as what is good for anyone and everyone, the things we have in common. Gay rights or Black Lives Matter should be explained as human rights, and all Democrats running for office should use the same messaging, a tactic that they can learn from Trump and his supporters. Trump supporters rallied to him based on anger, fear, and frustration, be it white, black, or brown. But beware, Trump and his party will not pause their assault. They will continue to exploit divides and paint Democrats as the enemy of the real America. The Democratic Party must push back by championing policies that matter: job security, healthcare costs, wages, and by refusing to cower or fracture under fire. The Democratic Party was once the proud advocate of working-class Americans. Yet today, many of these voters have drifted to the Republican Party, swayed by populist rhetoric that pretends to care but ultimately serves only the powerful. To regain their trust, Democrats must do more than just talk. They must deliver and be seen delivering real change for every worker in every corner of America. While Republicans under Trump peddle promises that rarely materialize, Democrats have the policies to make a difference. But policy is nothing without connection. When was the last time the party leadership was in the heart of struggling communities? When was the last time they showed up, really listened, and acted? For Democrats, this must change. They must be in every factory, every church, every neighborhood, fighting alongside the people they claim to represent. The dangers of Republican control loom large. Imagine a government where corporate interests reign supreme, healthcare is stripped bare, and voting rights are trampled. Democrats must remind every American that they are fighting for their livelihoods, their freedoms, their dignity, and show a visible contrast with Trump and his Republicans. The fight will not be won by policy alone. It will be won by trust, grit, and a return to the roots that once made the party strong. The challenges facing the Democratic Party today are not just those of policy, but of survival in the face of escalating anti-democratic forces. The re-election of Donald Trump and the consolidation of Republican power represent a clear and present danger to democracy, civil rights, and economic equality. This is no time for complacency. To fight back, Democrats must lead and mobilize a broad-based, open, non-violent resistance capable of countering every threat to democracy. This means becoming a movement as well as a party organized, relentless, and unyielding in the pursuit of justice. For too long, the Democratic Party has played defense while the opposition has executed a ruthless, calculated campaign to concentrate power and undermine democratic norms. No more. Democrats must become a party of organizers, not just politicians. The base needs to be activated, not just for elections, but every day, and in every battle, whether it's in the courts, legislatures, and communities. This begins by building networks of resistance that can mobilize on a moment's notice. Mass protests, petitions, direct lobbying, and legal challenges, all backed by a broad coalition of citizens from every walk of life. The power of nonviolent resistance cannot be underestimated. Across history, it has toppled dictators, dismantled systemic injustices, and forced power to bend to the will of the people. Democrats must seize this tradition and lead with courage. This means filling the streets when voting rights are threatened, showing up at town halls when public education is under attack, and using every tool at our disposal to fight the erosion of civil liberties. Each of us has a role to play. No act is too small when multiplied across millions of voices. The legal arena is another critical front in the battle for democracy. The courts have too often been used as a weapon against progress, with decisions that favor corporate power, restrict voting rights, and strike down common-sense regulations. Democrats need to bolster their efforts in the judiciary. This means not just fighting case-by-case battles, but also working to reform the system from within, expanding court access, appointing judges committed to upholding democratic values, and pressing for constitutional amendments where necessary. But no reform is more urgent than addressing the toxic role of money in politics. The 2010 Citizens United ruling opened the floodgates for corporate and dark money to swamp elections, corrupting the democratic process and allowing the wealthiest few to wield undue influence. This must be challenged at every turn. Democrats need a clear plan to overturn Citizens United, either through legislative action or a constitutional amendment. At the state and local level, campaigns for public financing of elections, stricter transparency rules, and anti-corruption initiatives can serve as models to reclaim democracy for the people. The party must also resist the siren song of big donors who seek to dilute its progressive agenda. Instead, it should deepen ties with labor unions, grassroots organizations, and small donor networks, putting people power at the center of every campaign. One of the greatest challenges facing the Democratic Party is internal discipline. When a small handful of lawmakers like Joe Manchin during the Build Back Better battles hold the entire agenda hostage, the party cannot afford to stand by. Democrats must develop tools and strategies to hold recalcitrant politicians accountable, both carrot and stick. This can include stronger whip operations, public pressure campaigns, political consequences for obstruction, and negotiation tactics that reflect the urgency of the stakes. Unity must be the watchword. While debate and dissent are essential to any healthy democracy, obstruction in service of personal ambition or corporate interests must be confronted. If Democrats cannot present a united front in the face of existential threats, they will fail to inspire the trust and confidence needed to win future battles. To those viewing, it is clear that the stakes have never been higher. The Democratic Party must find its soul, reclaim its voice, and return to being the true advocate of we the people. Our channel, Renaissance Spirit, is dedicated to the pursuits of a just, equitable, and humanitarian world with topics that span history, politics, personal development, civics, civic virtue, civitas, and social justice, just what we need in modern America. The challenges we face today echo those of the past struggles for democracy, equality, and the right to live freely. The Renaissance itself is a journey of awakening, and today we need nothing less. This is a fight for the soul of democracy, and every American has a stake. But the party also has to define what it means by democracy and what steps they plan to take to support it. For some, voting is democracy. For others, the right to an abortion. What do these two definitions have in common? The Democratic Party needs to explain what they mean without the common jargon and policy wonk terms that shut out many Americans. We must organize, mobilize, and resist with courage, unity, and purpose. The Renaissance Spirit channel is dedicated to the pursuit of a just, equitable, and humanitarian world, offering insights into self-improvement, finance, history, civics, minority rights, equality, politics, culture, and the fight for justice. Together, we can learn from our past, confront our present, and shape a future that reflects our highest ideals. Thank you for joining us in this journey. Share and engage with our community, because change begins here, and it begins with us. Live the Renaissance spirit. History has not died, only our understanding of it. If you believe in a better future, a future built on justice and compassion, join us. Please subscribe, turn on notifications, share, and let me know what you think and what suggestions you have for the Democratic Party in America moving forward. And remember, my channel is here for you. The Renaissance spirit lives on in all of us, seeking truth, justice, and a better world. Thank you for watching. Let's continue to explore, learn, and build together. Take our quiz next to see if you're a Renaissance spirit, and stay tuned for our video on building a political and social movement. Peace.